Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you may be. This is CW. I'm here in the dungeon at BTH&T. I've been off my game lately. Sorry about that. Hopefully tomorrow I'll get some answers or not. So we'll see. But got Todd. Just knock on the door. Don't go running off and leaving a note on my truck. The truck's parked 27 feet away from the door. And you just that's fine. Okay. You I know you know how to use Google, and you can use Wikipedia, and I realize that Google is now doing a lot more AI responses, and that sucks because it's not always right, and sometimes it's quite hilarious. Sorry. So, what is USAID? Come on. Okay, let's go back. We're going to go back in the Wayback Machine. Peabody's going to drive us there. Back in 1961, pretty rough times. JFK, guy behind me, he was running show. He was a Democrat, president, somewhat popular. He had we had 8 years of Dwight D. Eisenhower, not a bad guy, pretty popular. But the only thing I can think he did was establish a U.S. highway system and kind of forewarned us about a military complex, which anybody can tell you a Democrat like Lyndon Johnson can take full advantage of. So it's the height of the Cold War, and we'll do something on that so y'all can understand that. But back then, the country of Russia and several of the other little republics made up what they call the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, which was not a republic at all, but it looked good, and they went with initial CCCP. Don't ask. I can't even begin to explain, the way Russian is written. Truman established the Truman Doctrine that basically we would assist any country by many different ways to stop Soviet aggression, especially in Europe. One of the first tests was Greece. There was a lot of communist influence. We sent money, guns, representatives of a shadowy agency, and went to help. So this is one of the first things. One of the next things was the invasion of South Korea. And this was obviously, an attempt at Soviet domination, taking little pieces at a time. At the same time, the French were fighting, unfortunately, the mild communists in Vietnam. But I'll go on that on another thing. But that's just, let me stay focused. And it took United Nations to go in there. And that one of the most successful things that the United Nations did, and they did it all because the Soviets or the Soviet Russian representative wasn't there to block it. He got stuck in traffic in New York. Imagine that. So from that point on, they always had someone in the building 24 hours a day. Just a little hint and a half for you. So this goes in to 1960, 1961. JFK, very popular. He established or helped to establish, Congress actually established it, the United States Agency for International Development. And he had a couple of other things going on, like Peace Corps and Vista. It was all good and positive. Now, there was also, there are certain intelligence agencies that, well, instead of using the State Department, they used Peace Corps and the USAID to infiltrate certain areas, maybe perhaps influence elections or candidates of other things. I'm not going to deny that. But now, what this was is basically an agency which we wanted to help, with the hearts and minds. We're going to give you some help. We're going to give you some, you know, how to how to use a radio station to keep people in check. Radio Free Europe. I still remember the commercials on Broadway. But that was it. This is how this all started. It was to help supplement, sometimes very secretly, countries to develop into democracies and get assistance from us, maybe to help, establish business corps or you know, printing houses, stuff like this, just to get going. Maybe printing presses, establish newspapers that were free, so people could get whatever news there was and propaganda we may have provided for them. Everything against the Soviet Union. I think I've mentioned this before. Back in those days, they used to say, you know, the true meaning of like a third world country was not an undeveloped nation. Uh, that's just what they got lazy and started using it for that. A third world country was an undecided country. It was not communist or democracy or republic. It wasn't pro-American or pro-Russian. America was a first world country, and Russia or the Soviet Union at that time was a second world country. So if you were a third, you basically third world country was you didn't claim alliance or anything with either of the major parties or the major governments. So this thing's been in line for a little bit. It used to be pretty open, not open anymore, apparently. A couple of senators, I remember this, tried to get in there. They wouldn't let them in. That's kind of weird. I mean, for like a sitting senator to get, a Freedom of Information Act on how your tax dollars are being spent. That's right. They like to say they're not part of the government, but the USAID is so part of the government. They are using your money, your tax dollars, Todd. Listen up. So you have every right to know how your money's being spent. And if they tell you you don't, well, you need to do something about that. And there's a lot of funny things. They get this year, I think in President Trump's first term, they were down to like 23.2 billion or something like that. Officially, well, not officially, but the best estimate so far for Joe Biden's term, they were close to $47 billion. And some of these things for foreign aid assistance are, are goofy. What was some of the ones that caught my mind? $70,000 for a production of a musical in Ireland featuring didn't earn it initiatives. You know how I feel about that. That's why I'm going to call it DEI. Okay. Then there was the $47,000 for a transgender opera in Colombia. What have we become, you know, angels that now provide for musical productions? What's the cut on this? Um, Peruvian comic books, transgender. Why? What do the Peruvians want this? Well, let them draw their own. It's kind of weird. So, but you're going to hear a lot of this coming up. Hopefully, my feeling is that it probably doesn't exceed any more than 10% of the budget. Well, of course, that would be $5 billion of your tax dollars. And President Trump was elected by mandate. And, as much as they try to make it not about him and that he's doing stuff illegal, this is a governmental agency. USAID is that. Initially, it was, established by Congress in 1961, directed to be part of the Department of State. So, as and now Marco Rubio, Secretary of State, has been appointed at the head of it. He has appointed his liaison to direct it and probably answer directly to him about these questionable activities. There's a couple of things that are really weird. The Gaza condoms, they're going to make out a lot of things that may or may not, they're probably true. I, but, $50 million. And now, one of the news people said that, and I believe they were on Fox. So, fair disclaimer that these were going to be used possibly as devices. And they can be, but anybody who saw Goodfellas knows that generally you use them for, inside jobs that are basically, you know, arson. But yeah, they could be used for short range um, stuff I can't say, but explosive devices. This one kind of got my attention. The USAID sent $102.2 million to the International Medical Corps to provide Gaza with services, ambulances, emergency medical equipment. But the International Medical Corps wrote in a press release that didn't quite receive all that. Only received 68 million, 78,508 as of October 7th. Where'd the rest of it go? Now, see, I would ask. That would be, it's time for an audit. And you know how well the government does with audits. Just ask the Pentagon. And then for a spokesman from the Pentagon to say, well, I don't think you know what an audit is. Yeah, I do. You guys show me where your money went. And if you fail the audit, obviously someone's cheating or buying $4,000 hammers again. We don't want that. Another thing, I saw a soundbite recently of the president of Ukraine talked about receiving $177 billion of, military and humane supplies. Yet he said to his, I think it was a local news magazine on his side, they've already received 100 billion. Where's the 77 billion? I'm not sure if someone's taken a cut for delivery because surprisingly, most of this aid is run by operatives. People, maybe Americans, maybe not, representing them, somehow getting them on a plane, then taking a cut. Is that possible? No, surely not, especially if they're Americans related to senators or congressmen. I'm not saying that. I just think y'all should be a little bit more transparent. So maybe Doge going in there and taking that thing apart and seeing where the money is actually going. Because this money is, like I said, for, bilateral agreements between us, the United States, and our friends and allies, hopefully, are trying to pursue persuade someone to be an ally. I, I don't know what senator it was, but they were afraid that um, the CCP, don't be confused, the Chinese Communist Party, which is about as communist as it can be with all its aid or marketing, um, will swoop in and fill the gap. Yeah, I bet. We'll be seeing them do a lot of GBT activism plays or comic books. Or how about $6 million of tourism, how to promote it in Egypt for them, not for us? I, Todd, the thing is, yeah, you tell your teacher, whatever, established in 61 under the Kennedy administration through Congress, basically just tell them this: for hearts and minds, that type of supplement support for bilateral, meaning benefits us and them, and like that. I don't think we're going to do away with this, the USAID. It's a good idea, but it needs to be managed. And one thing they can manage is opening the books. Okay, I'm sorry. I got off on my high horse. I just wanted to answer your question, Todd. Thanks again. Who is GP? Is this is that is that one of your girlfriends? Okay. Well, I hope that helps. And for everybody else, that's kind of what I do here. Sometimes I get a question or something like that, and I, I never like students to use Wikipedia. I mean, I don't have a problem with them looking at it and then, gathering up sources, then research the sources and make sure, one, they're valid. Because Wikipedia, you can write anything about anyone. But that's what USAID, basically. That would be good. A short little essay question. You should be able to kick that out now. JFK, John Kennedy, 61, Congress, bilateral, hearts and minds. See you next time. This is CW. If you don't like this, please tell me. If you disagree with my definition, please write it down in the comments. That's the only way it helps this channel. And I am, once again, I'm sorry. I do appreciate it. All my viewers, all my subscribers. Just like I said, I should know something tomorrow. I hope to be back tomorrow. I don't anticipate not being back. So I'll see you.